This week on the Orange Box podcast, we talk all about Death Stranding releasing on Xbox, the hints at a PlayStation showcase next month, a brand new Steam Deck coming soon, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to that beautiful bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 58. I am your host, the man who is looking into making an Orange Box handheld, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man who gave Elon Musk the idea to form the Department of Government Efficiency, also known as Doge, Justin, better known as I Am Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
It's been pretty good, I'll say. Still got little remnants of my cold, but for the most part, I am much better. Sunday, my brother-in-law and I, we went to see Dragon Ball Daima in theaters. They were showing the first 3 episodes of the series, and I thought it would be a good reason to go out with him. Just do something together. And he likes Dragon Ball, I like Dragon Ball, so also just to see if the series is actually any good or not, and to know if we would want to invest more time into it. So we saw that. Not bad. Yesterday I tried out this recipe from this channel. You might not have heard of it. It's called Not Authentic But Delicious. So I made the mac and cheese recipe on there, and so I gave it a shot. And it was good. I'm not gonna lie, that was very good, and I really like the idea of adding cream cheese for the sauce. I thought that was very good. Now, one thing I will admit is that I kind of messed things up because I'm so used to cooking with pasta and making that first that I was cooking that, and then because I had the video playing as I was making it, and then I realized as I was watching this and I'm making the sauce, I realized, oh, I'm supposed to cook the pasta at the end. So I messed up on that end, but with everything else, though, I was following the recipe, and I'm very satisfied with the results. I don't want to jump the gun and stuff, but I feel like I kind of could have waited to try the alternative recipe, but that's all I'll say for that. But still, very good stuff there. Very good.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I think there's still definitely room for tweaking, but for the most part, I'm satisfied with the recipe. So, But yeah, it's the only reason that I cook the pasta at the end is because it doesn't take super long to put together the sauce for one, but also the pasta takes very little time to make, and trying to make them at the same time can be a little tricky. But the other issue, of course, is that it's good to use pasta water because then you get the extra starch to help keep it from getting too thin, but also helps to thicken it a little bit. It's weird. Anyway, it works, so that's what matters. So cool. Well, my week has been mostly uneventful, I guess you could say. One thing that this has just been kind of an ongoing issue that it's not so much that I forget to talk about, it's more just that I haven't really until now figured out what the issue actually was. So I've had this pain in my arm, elbow down to my forearm for months now, and it's definitely something caused by lifting, and but it's only in my left arm. I've never had any issues with my right arm, even though I do the same amount of weight on each arm. And I've tried various ways to help it out, and nothing's really worked. And I finally was telling some people about it, and they basically told me, yeah, it sounds like tendonitis or tennis elbow. So I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I haven't gone to a doctor because I don't want to pay a doctor to tell me something that is pretty obvious, especially when I talk to someone who, when he described what it was like when he had it, it's that's exactly what it is, for sure. So I'm trying out various things to see if I can help with that, and hopefully I can figure something out that, I don't think it's going to be anything that necessarily requires surgery, but it's just more I need to try some different exercises to see what I can help with that, because it's frustrating to me right now. Like I can't lift anything. I've basically just been powering through it in whatever way I can, and it's difficult because it's just really painful. Um, but I need to try out some different exercises and stuff to see if that helps. One of the things that I read was just like squeezing a stress ball with that hand, and so I'll probably be doing that throughout the podcast just to see if that helps a bit. Um, with helping it to heal properly and get back to normal. But aside from that, I did finally get my next cooking video done, and I will definitely say that I will never again wait to record the voiceover until after the fact because I hate doing it that way. It's so much easier to just record the voiceover as I'm cooking. And I mean that was a particular situation where it was like there wasn't really any way that I could keep things quiet while I was recording because my sister and her kids were there on top of my own kids, so it was just very noisy. But yeah, trying to do that was just a big hassle, and I definitely don't want to do that again. I didn't get anything recorded. Well, I sort of got stuff recorded for the next comparison, but not fully, and I'm gonna have to do some more with it. More likely than not, it's not going to be up this coming week, so there's that at least. But let's see here, what else? So there's this project I've been needing to do in the house for a while. So I have Ethernet cables running from my living room, which is where we have the router, to both my room for my computer as well as for the front bedroom, which is our guest room. And it's just because those computers don't have Wi-Fi, and of course wired connection is more reliable anyway. And when I had originally set it up, I had like plastic adhesive cable housing that I put on the cables in order to basically just attach it to the wall. I thought that would work well. It didn't last very long. It ended up, the adhesive wore off, and it's been a mess for a long time. So I finally got around to starting to correct that using nail or clips for the Ethernet cables that you nail it into the wall. And so I got one of them done, one of the 3 cables, because 2 of them are going to be coming to my room, so that way whenever I'm doing the 24-hour streams, I can move the computer into here, and then I don't have to move the cable. But the I ran out of the clips, and even though I had ordered some more over the weekend, and they were supposed to be here today, first they were supposed to be here like Monday or something. They didn't get here by Monday. And I took Monday off so that I could finish it up because I didn't get as much done on Saturday as I wanted to. But I could only do so much because of the lack of those clips. And now they're delayed until next week. It's very annoying. So unfortunately, it's not something where I can cancel the order because it already shipped a while ago. So I just have to wait on that. But yeah, there was something else I was going to say. Must not have been anything all that important. But yeah. So anyway, what have you been playing this past week?
So I played a little bit of Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, and primarily the reason I played that was just because I thought maybe I'll make a small review of Dragon Ball Daima. Didn't really end up doing it because I wasn't satisfied with the results, but I played some of that, played some of the future Trunks storyline. So didn't get too far into that, but played enough where I could at least remember how the controls went and make a little bit of progress with the story. So I did that. Played some Stardew Valley with friends again. We went back, and at first we couldn't remember what we were supposed to be working on when we came back to the game, but we then remembered that we had to try getting the ultimate sword in the game, which I went ahead, got the rest of the items that I needed, and forged it. And I got the sword, and I thought maybe if it works like with the other weapons where once you acquire a weapon, you're able to purchase it from the Adventurers Guild. And I thought I'll make one sword since there's a lot of ingredients that goes into like forging it. So I said I'll get the sword and I'll try buying it so that way they don't have to worry about finding the rest of the rare drops and stuff. Unfortunately, the guild doesn't work that way, so I wasn't able to buy the sword from them for them. So they'll try to do that later on to make their own swords. We had the special, because we were near the end of the fall season, we had the special sort of Halloween event, so we went around trying to go through the maze to find like the golden pumpkin, which you can sell to get a lot of gold. But yeah, not too much else to say about that. One thing I'll also say, just as a quick little add-in, I didn't really have a chance to record anything from it, but I played some Factorio with a group of buddies. The friends who I played with before, but also other friends of friends through them and through that I knew. But we sort of like had a large party where we could work together. I missed the first session because I was ill last week, but this Sunday we played a little bit, just trying to expand our factory and also trying to improve our resources. So I didn't stay long for that because I had to go out that evening, but did some work there. But mostly I've been playing some more Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix HD. And I know initially I said I wasn't going to do this, but I decided to go ahead and finish the game, go ahead and fight Xemnas. And so I did that just because partially I didn't want to wait that long to fight him. Also because I know there are a couple things that unlock only after you finish the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I said I'll go ahead and do that. First time going through there, and also I got the Ultima weapon. That's like the one thing I've been working to get was the Ultima weapon, and so that really made things a whole lot easier than probably it normally would be. But I will say that unfortunately, when you're at the final part of the fight with him and you switch to Riku, he's so slow. He walks like he doesn't have a care in the world, and I lost the first time because of the fact that I couldn't reach Sora in time. But then the second time I was a little smarter and I said I'll just try to keep circling around the Xemnas clone so I can get to Sora, and that seemed to work. I barely made it, but I made it, and then I was able to finish the game. Also, I think I don't know, I think I messed up during the final part of the fight where you're supposed to reflect all the lasers, because I kept hitting triangle, but it didn't seem to reflect. So I'm not sure if I have to press something else or not, but I mean, I got through it because I had enough health, but did that. So currently I'm just going through a whole lot of the side stuff, like going against the Mushroom 13 members, which I've gone through about half of them, but trying to get through some of their other requirements is just insane because of either strict time limits or just other things that they require. It's just a bit of a hassle trying to get through some of them. They're quite difficult. I also went back to some of the Olympus Coliseum cups, like the Paradox versions, and I'm clearing through them, but I have to replay some of them just to get the right score that I need to count as clearing it completely. And then other side stuff like, well, I finally I went to the Cave of Remembrance. That's something that I started doing beforehand, but because later on you face the hallway that's filled with nobodies and 3 waves of them, it was just brutal, and I had to stop because I kept getting wiped out before I thought about actually using better spells and also trying to use summons as well. So I finally got through that. Finally got through that of the hallway, and so now I can face all 13 members again, or for the first time for some of them. That's definitely gonna be difficult because I started a couple of them. I started fighting Vexen and I started fighting Marluxia, and they're definitely a whole lot harder than when you first fight them in the game. I also tried, I think, Zigbar, and he also was definitely more difficult than when you normally fight him. So I'm gonna come back later, probably once I level up a little more, and then try giving them all a shot again because I'm just not ready for them right now. But yeah, I think that's everything that I've done in the game so far this week.
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly on that fight against Zenus on the very last part where you have to reflect all the lasers, I think you have to press two buttons at once because you're supposed to be reflecting them with
Oh,
both Sora and Riku. Because I
okay,
remember how tricky it was. I think if I remember right, it might have been triangle and X at the same time, and
okay.
so because I remember I had to like turn my controller some way so that I could actually hit both buttons at the same time. But I mean, granted, this is 18 years ago that I did that, so that's my best recollection. But I do remember that, and I'm almost positive you have to hit two different buttons at the same time. So
Okay, that would make sense then, because I was like, I see reflect with like the reaction command. I'm like, all
mhm,
right, yeah, I'm hitting that. I'm like, well, why am I still getting hit? But that would make sense as to why I'm getting hit.
yeah. All right. Well, I have um quite a bit to talk about with games, so I'm gonna try my best not to spend too much time on any of them. Um, but I'm gonna start off by mentioning I didn't do a lot of recording. Well, okay, let me back up. So, Red Dead Redemption on Switch. I wanted to start getting stuff recorded for that comparison. Um, I think I more or less figured out where I wanted to stop, but I haven't fully decided yet. The biggest issue I had was that when I was recording, I was trying to do manual like pro settings on adjusting all the different camera settings to get just the right um, color palette and everything. Basically trying to make it look as close to real life as possible. And I mean, I probably spent like 20-30 minutes just fiddling with the camera settings while recording and trying to get it right, and it nothing was working right. It just was not looking good. Like there's like a weird bluish purple tint to it, and it was very annoying. And ultimately I ended up just settling on um, just using the automatic settings, and that seemed to be better. I mean, the lighting isn't perfect, but the way it actually looks on the screen is a whole lot closer to what it looks like in real life. Uh, the only real downside being that at that angle, it definitely shows off more of the glare than I would expect it to, or at least it did like when I did other games. But I think it's partially just because Red Dead's kind of got a different color palette in general. So um, I'll probably have to re-record the first little bit of what I did. I don't think it's going to be a super long thing. I basically just went through like first couple of story missions, if you could call them that. I guess you could call them missions, but anyway, yeah, I just kind of did that and a little bit of exploration, and that was about it. Um, but yeah, then something that I ended up grabbing just because it was on sale for super cheap is I grabbed the three Metro games, and I booted up 2030 Metro 2033 on the Steam Deck. Um, had to mess with the settings a little bit, but it was pretty easy to get 60 frames per second and still looked great. So that's not something I was really planning to actually get into right now. It was more just like, okay, these games were literally $2 a piece. So I was totally fine with spending that little for three games that I had some interest in checking out anyway. Um, so yeah, not really much of anything to say. I played like maybe 30 minutes of the game, just like partway into the prologue. I think maybe through the very early part of the game. Then I played a bunch of Ghostwire Tokyo. Um, I played a bit just on Steam Deck, but the majority of the time that I played, I was either playing streaming from my PC to my Steam Deck, where I could bump up all the settings and I could even turn on ray tracing if I wanted to and still get 90 frames per
Ooh.
second at 800p. Um, but I ultimately ended up just turning off ray tracing because I didn't really feel like it added anything significant. But the streaming was really good. I was able to I really didn't have any stutter or anything else. It was like just a solid 90 frames per second, and um, it looked great and played great, and I ended up playing the game mostly that way. Um, Played a little bit also um, on my PC itself, like when it got to the point that my wife wanted to go to bed and I wasn't quite ready to go to sleep yet. So then I booted it up. I mean, I just swapped over to playing just on the PC with mouse and keyboard, and yeah. But that's a game that actually, it plays well whether you do mouse and keyboard or button controls. So I've definitely enjoyed what I played. I don't think there's a lot of story chapters left. I think I have maybe a couple story chapters left. But there's lots to do in the open world, so I've kind of kind of just been going back and forth between the two um, on that front. And most of the time in this game, like the enemies haven't really been all that scary to me, mostly because even though if I was unable to defend myself, then yeah, they would be scary. But for the most part, otherwise, it's just kind of like, okay, well, I can defend myself, so it's no big deal. Um, but there's a couple of enemies that are definitely much more on the creepy side. And there's this side quest, which I believe wasn't there part of the game at launch, but just kind of came out. I mean, well, I don't know when it came out, but I'm pretty sure it was something that was just added to the game after launch. And it's like, I don't want to get too much in depth because if there's anyone listening that's like uh has a vivid imagination and would be creeped out by this, I don't want to give people nightmares. It's not going to show up in any of the footage here. This is just general, like walking around and doing general stuff in the environment. But there's like this side quest where um there are portions where you are more defenseless, basically. It's like you go into this hidden world, and um, this particular enemy that you face, if they see you, or rather, if you make eye contact with them at all, then they will like warp over to you and kill you instantly. That's basically the simplest way to put it. But just like the overall vibe of this portion of the game was like super creepy, especially when you get to this special world. And yeah, I mean, I got through the whole thing, got through all that stuff, and so I'm completely done with that part. But yeah, but yeah, I really enjoy the game. I definitely still would have to say that BioShock is a better game. Um, this one has a lot more to do in it, but and obviously like it's graphically more impressive and stuff, but I just think in terms of mostly the combat, I think is just better in BioShock. And I think a big part of that is the fact that in this, your combat is mostly limited to you have just like uh, three different elements that you use, and then there's like slight variations on how those function, um, depending on whether it's charged or not. And here I'm trying to think. And then you have a bow as an alternate thing, and then like we have talismans that you can use as well, or not talismans. I can't remember what they call them. I guess it is talismans. That like the little pieces of paper with kanji on them or whatever that you use, and like it does a different function, like you see in anime and everything else. They do all that stuff. But it's the one thing that BioShock has that this game really doesn't have is more weapons, like physical weapons. So when you run out of essentially your mana points, I guess you could call them, you have to try and figure out ways to recover them, and it's not always super simple. So because of that, it ends up being a little more tricky to actually get sometimes get mana recovered so that you can actually attack enemies and everything. But anyway, good game. I'm enjoying it. I did play some more of Destiny Rising, and I was thinking about it some more as I was playing, and I figured out what the visuals remind me of in terms of like the quality level, because it's kind of that weird position where it doesn't quite feel like a PS1 game, but it doesn't quite feel like a PS2 game either. It's like that weird in between, and I realized it reminds me of like a 3DS game in terms of its visuals. Like if you blew up a 3DS game's visuals. Although I think the 3DS game's visuals typically look a little bit better in person, especially because of the fact that you have the 3D effect, whereas this one, doesn't have anything like that. Still, plays pretty reasonably. I did get to, I should back up first. So I got to do like a strike, which is a normal 3-player match made activity. It's something that's in Destiny 1 and Destiny 2. Normal activity. This is the first time that I had an opportunity to do that, and that's not the footage that's playing right at this moment, but I'll get to that here in a little bit. But before I got to that, I unlocked some more characters and started to come across some of the monetization issues that are definitely going to be gross. So, I mean, obviously, you get like certain resources each day that you can use those resources to upgrade weapons and upgrade your character and things like that. And then you also have the opportunity to draw for other characters. And, of course, these different characters have different types of weapons that they can use, because each character, which I wasn't entirely sure of last week, but I'm aware of now, each character has a set loadout of the types of weapons they can use. You can change weapons within that type. So, like, for example, the character you start off with is essentially a hunter class, and the weapons that they have available to them are auto rifles, so automatic rifles, and heavy grenade launchers. And then like another character will have handguns hand cannons and which are just like basically big revolver type guns that hold a lot more rounds than revolvers. So basically just like big beefy handguns. And then I think the other weapon they have is a rocket launcher. And then like there's another character you get, which is actually like a younger version of one of the characters from Destiny 2, or Destiny 1 and Destiny 2. That's essentially a warlock, and she has a smaller grenade launcher, like a tube grenade launcher, and then fusion rifle. So all that being said, basically it's just you're limited to specific weapon types for each character, and then you can get weapons that fit within those archetypes that the character can use, but you can't, like, on the character that uses auto rifles primarily, they can't use hand cannons, and so on and so forth. So, but the thing about this monetization though is that there's these characters that you can only get by drawing them, and you get a limited number of like free draws per day, and then after that it immediately asks you if you want to purchase silver, which is the in-game currency that you purchase with real money in order to buy some of these loot boxes that give you a chance to get it. And of course the percentage chance is like 1% to get these characters. So obviously I didn't buy any. I'm not going to buy any, but it's just like, yep, I see what they're going to do here, and I think it's going to be very successful for them. It's horrible, but I can see how it would be successful for sure. But going into the strikes, so I'll probably have to mess around with the footage in editing, but strikes seem to run about as well as I would expect a strike to run. It's 3-player match made activity, and it seemed to work just fine. Like I was pleased with how well it ran. I'm still not sure that the game is actually getting 60 frames per second at all, but like in terms of, playing a mobile game, it's not bad. Like I thought that was fine. Um it's definitely a situation though where this is not the kind of game that I could see myself playing all the time, and in large part just because of the fact that um my only ability to actually play this would be if I can't play it at work because my work network blocks the connection to that server, to these remote servers. So it's like, okay, well, I can't do anything with that, so I can play it at home. In which case, if I was at home, I would rather just be playing Destiny 2 if I was wanting to play Destiny. Or I can play, if I'm remote somewhere else, like if I'm visiting my in-laws or something in Wyoming, I could do that. And I could see myself potentially trying out playing that way, because it would definitely be better than trying to like remote play from my PC at their house where the internet is terrible and everything else. But yeah, I don't really have any other thoughts on that. I just basically I think that it's interesting enough to where like I could see myself at least playing it here and there, but much like with Destiny 2, I'm not really sure if it's something I would stick with when I feel like I'm just having to reinvest time into something that that I'm just not that invested in, if that makes sense. So let's see here. I guess there's really just one last game, and I already told you that I grabbed this. So there's this little game called Dark Souls 3. I found it was on sale through Instant Gaming, and it was more than 50% off, because normally the lowest it ever gets down to is $30, which is half price. And that's just like on occasion on Steam it'll drop that low, but on Instant Gaming it was $24.50. It's like, that's good enough for me. So I went ahead and bought it. I haven't decided how much I'm like actually getting invested in it right now, but with that being said, I've played it quite a bit over the past couple days. I mean, I think I've maybe put like 4 or 5 hours into it so far. Haven't gotten very far yet. I just got to the first real boss, because I mean like because of course you have like what essentially you could call the tutorial boss, like at the very, very beginning. Mm-hmm. And then after that, you have another boss after you go to Lordrick's Tower, or whatever the name of the place is. And that's the boss I just got to. I finally figured out where he was and everything. And I've tried that fight a couple times. Or no, I've tried like 3 times. And of course, like usual, the first time I got far in the fight, I got him down to about maybe like 10% of his health, and then he killed me. And then since then, I have not been so lucky. I think the best I've done since then is like getting down to maybe 50%. But I will say, with like the intro boss that you fight, first time I fought him, I assumed I was supposed to lose because I just got to him so quickly. And a lot of times, these early bosses in the game, oh, you're supposed to lose, and then you move on from there. It's like, nope, that's not what was supposed to happen. So I ended up losing the first time, also because it took me a little bit to figure out that he was weak to fire. And I'm running as a pyromancer, so I figured it out like maybe 3/4 of the way through the fight. Or rather, no, I mean, it wasn't technically that far. I figured it out when I was down to, I think I might have had 1 Estus flask left, if that, and then realized, oh, he's weak to fire, I should be using my fire spell. And then I started doing that and was doing a lot more damage than my hand axe. And then I went back in and just used the fire spell until I ran out of um, ran out of mana, which I do love the fact that this game doesn't have just limited number of spells, and it's actually like using uh, a certain amount of mana and a potion. I didn't realize until like after I finished the fight that, oh, I have a mana potion that I could use, and that would make it possible for me to replenish my mana so that I could actually just take him out with fire. But I just took him out with a weapon. And but yeah, that was kind of a fun fight though. I mean, of course it really was pretty easy once I realized he was weak to fire. But yeah, runs well on Steam Deck. The footage here, I had turned down some of the settings to get a consistent 60 because at first it seemed like it wasn't quite maintaining it well enough. And since then I turned up the settings further and I'm still getting 60 basically, with the occasional drop down to like 58. So future footage is going to look better than this does. But yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else I really need to say about Dark Souls. More than anything, I'm just not quite sure if I'm sticking with it right now. I'm just like, I'm playing, and we'll see like how I feel when I finish this boss that I'm on, because I don't want to get too invested in it right now since I'm still working on Ghostwire Tokyo. And I mean, I think I booted up Jedi Survivor briefly over the weekend, but that was just very briefly. Mostly because I decided not to keep it on the Steam Deck since I wanted to make room for other games, particularly for like Metro initially, and then also for Dark Souls. And so I just decided to uninstall Jedi Survivor. At least I'm pretty sure I did. It's possible I uninstalled something else, but I'm almost positive that I just uninstalled Jedi Survivor. And I haven't tried that since. Plus also the fact that I realized that streaming is working a lot better than it was before, so I'll probably, if I want to play that on the Steam Deck, I'll just stream it from my PC. But we'll see what happens. Either way, yeah, I don't really have any other things to say on that front.
Is that your last game?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So yeah, I'm glad you got into. I'm glad you got into Dark Souls 3. Now, one thing I'll say is that I've heard this because I've heard this several different places, that apparently the reason why Dark Souls 3 only drops down to $30 now might be because of Elden Ring. Because it sounds weird, but it wasn't like that before, and I think mainly because of the DLC that came out. But Dark Souls 3 was definitely a whole lot cheaper beforehand on Steam, that is.
Oh, okay.
The game, just the base game, it went on as low as $10.
Oh, really?
Like maybe even like it was either $10 or $15, but like that's how low it got. Wow. Like, so the fact that now it's only $30 at most on sale on Steam is really weird. Because yeah. I got the complete edition with the DLC for I think maybe $20. So the fact that they're charging $30 for it for just the base game is really weird. So I don't know what Bandai Namco is doing, but that's definitely weird. But I'm definitely glad you got it for a cheaper price though, because like I would not recommend spending $30 on the game. Well, as much as I love it,
it's $60 normally. It's $30 on discount. So
yeah. But yeah, definitely. I guess one thing I'll say is, how do you feel about the way it feels compared with Dark Souls 1?
So far I like it. I definitely noticed the big difference in the rolling. Like your rolling is, you roll so much higher and further right away. And I mean, granted, I'm running pretty lightweight, but like it feels very similar to when I've rolled with nothing on it in Dark Souls Remastered. And I'm just wearing the basic pyromancer gear, because like I've tried putting on some other stuff, but it's like, well, the stats are not good enough to make up for how much it slows me down when I switch gear. So I've just been going with the starter gear until I find something that's better and still light.
Yeah. And I'll say a couple things, just a couple tips at which, if you don't continue playing with the game right now, you might forget later on, and that's fine. But just something to share is that one cool thing is that with the two different flasks you get, with one for the Estus and one for the
Right.
Magic, you can actually, as you upgrade it, even also forget where you can do this, but you can also switch between how much goes into each one. So if you want to have more Estus, you can do that. If you want to have more of the other one, you can do that as well. So that's pretty nice. I mean, I normally just go all in on Estus because my builds don't really use Magic. But if you can want to balance it out or have more of one, you can definitely do that. And I'll also say that with many of the, I guess, beast kind or larger bosses in the game, especially with Vort, the one you were facing before, it really helps to sort of attack them from their rear, just because they normally just attack directly in front of them. So if you hit them from behind, then it definitely helps avoid the damage you'll receive. Of course, they can always just try to spin around and attack you, but it helps with like bosses like that. It makes things a whole lot easier for you. But yeah, definitely good there. Question I want to ask you about Metro. Were those the original versions or the Redux ones?
Redux.
Okay, so that's...
And I think they're on sale on GOG too, or at least they were last week. But I didn't realize that until after the fact, and I kind of like just having the Steam key because while, you have the DRM, it's also just easier to play it in Steam that way. So...
Okay, well, that's definitely very good then. You can get those games. Because I was thinking that maybe it would be the original games, and that's why they're so cheap if it's the Redux. I might have to look into getting that then. Because, I'm definitely interested in there. So, yeah, I'll definitely look into that. I felt like there was one more question I wanted to ask. I'm trying to remember what that was. I don't know. If I remember, I will definitely ask you later. But yeah, definitely good stuff you've got there, and I'm thrilled to hear that you started Dark Souls 3, a favorite of mine, as I've mentioned before in the past.
Right.
But
well, I do have to ask your opinion because I checked with my buddy who I talked to a lot about the Dark Souls stuff, and he told me that the DLC in Dark Souls 3 isn't really any good. There was one of the bosses that was good, and it wasn't until the very end, and the other one sucked. So what's your opinion on the DLC stuff? Is it worth it?
Now, unfortunately, I haven't played too much of the DLC.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I kind of feel like I messed myself up because I started the DLC way after completing all the achievements and stuff, so I'm in New Game Plus 3. And so going into the DLC now, after doing that, it definitely was a whole lot more difficult than it probably would be if I just played it under a regular New Game. But from what I've heard, though, is that the first DLC was not good, but the second one, and the first one I believe is called, it's something of Ariando, something like that. That one wasn't that great, but the second one, the Ring City, I heard that one was so much better. So that's just what I've heard. Like I said, I haven't started the Ring City, but I started a little bit of the Ariandel one. I haven't gotten too far into that, but so I can't really make too much of a claim there as to whether it's good or not.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I just grabbed the game without the DLC based on what he told me, and I figured that'd be good enough to...
Oh yeah, the base game is definitely very good enough by itself.
Yeah. So... But yeah, we'll see if that's something that I stick with right now. I mean, I'm still playing it, but I also... Well, part of the issue was, I was going to just go back to playing Ghostwire. And this area that I went into, the frame rate just tanked. And it was okay. Well, that is when I was playing natively on the Steam Deck. The frame rate tanked in one spot. And so I was like, okay, this is not going to work. I can't play at 20 frames. That's just too low. Like, dropping into the 30s and in the high 20s on rare occasions, okay, I can live with that to some degree. But when it's like I go into this area and then it's dropping to like 20 and below, it's like, no, I can't play that way. That's not any good. And so like after I had tried playing that a little bit, I switched back to streaming. It's like 90 frames per second again. It's like, yes, so much better. So yeah, but I think it's just gonna kind of be something that I'll play it by ear. I know that tomorrow, of course, I'm going to the office, so I will probably just be playing Dark Souls because I'm not sure if the I know streaming isn't going to work because I'm not going to be able to stream from the office. Plus, the internet there is slow, even if I could connect to my home computer. But also, I'm just not sure if the game itself would run well enough. Because, like, if it's running at 40, I'm fine with that. I'm perfectly fine at 40. Even 30, I can live with. But when you get below 20, that's not acceptable. I can't do that. That's too low for that game. So especially when you go into an area where you have like more difficult enemies that you're facing, ones that have a lot more health and hit harder and everything, it's like, no, I'm not doing that. So
yeah. I'm glad you actually mentioned Ghostwire because that actually was the question I had wanted to ask you. So have you been playing that at least on the Steam Deck with gyro?
I think so, but this one you can use lock on, and realistically, like there's typically not much benefit to like aiming for the head most of the time, unless you're using the bow. Like if you're using the bow, it's useful to aim for the head, but if you're not using the bow, like the spells, it really doesn't make any difference where you aim for the most part. And at least that seems to be the case. I might be wrong on that. I'm sure someone who plays the game a lot more would end up correcting me, but yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, that is all I got. Anything else before we get into the news?
No, sir.
All right, well, we got quite a few things to cover tonight, so we're going to try not to spend too much time on at least some of these, but to get some of the quicker stuff out of the way, first of all, we have Stellar Blade has basically been confirmed by the developers of Stellar Blade, which I don't even remember the name of them. They did an interview with a Korean outlet where they were asked about when they were bringing it over to PC, and they said that it's going to be in 2025. So in terms of how soon in 2025, it's hard to say. But do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely great. I mean, we sort of already knew they were sort of teased about bringing it over to PC, so it was more so a matter of when than if. So getting this sort of this tentative date, you could say, is definitely nice. Knowing that 2025 is right around the corner, so even if it's sooner or rather later than sooner, it's still fine because it'll be coming out next year. My guess, maybe, because I don't know how development's going, and especially since they're a smaller team than you could say others. I mean, granted, we also know how long they've been working on the PC ports. It might be something that is, I would say, the later half of 2025. So like July onwards, that would be when we could expect to see it. And I mean, one of the things that was mentioned in the quick mention was saying the fact that the Steam share of the AAA gaming market and Black Myth Wukong, the performance on PC,
right.
As a reason as to why they would want to bring the game over. It's like, yeah, you're not wrong there. You're not wrong there. So definitely great to see.
Yeah, for sure. I think it would be really funny if it... Well, I mean, it's very possible it could come out with a year or less between the PS5 release and the PC release. I will say already that I'm not going to buy this game. I think the gameplay looks fun, but it's just the character design and stuff. It's not beneficial to me as a Christian man who's trying to maintain some level of purity. It's just like, no, I can't play that. But I mean, that's just my personal conviction. Some people are not really affected by that, but I definitely am. So I'm staying away from it. But I still think it's cool that I mean, we already knew it was coming to PC, but especially if it comes over sooner rather than later, that could be very cool for people who want to play it. Because like you said, the game will sell well. Like, I don't know for sure if China's Communist Party will let them buy that game, or if they'll be limited on that. But if they're not limited, it's going to sell well in China probably too. And that in and of itself would make a huge difference in sales numbers. Especially when you have, like over 1 billion people in China. So
Yeah.
and lots and lots of people playing PC games, so yep. But any other thoughts on that?
No, sir.
All right. Now, the next piece of news I have here is something that kind of was surprising, but also not surprising. And that is that Steam Deck OLED is getting a limited edition white release. So it is a fully white Steam Deck OLED with light gray buttons and sticks and all that. And it looks really good. Like, if they had this available at launch, I probably would have gotten the white one. But to give some more specifics on it, it's going to be available worldwide on November 18th, 2024 at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The model will cost $679 US, so that's an extra $30 over the normal price, and will be available in all Steam Deck shipping regions, including Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and Hong Kong via Komodo. It will also include customers in Australia, and that the equivalent time will be November 19th at 10 a.m. AEDT. So, last thing I want to note on this is that it is limited to one per customer. It has all the same specs as the regular Steam Deck OLED 1TB model, just with different colors. It comes with an exclusive white carrying case and white microfiber cleaning cloth. And this is completely limited. Once it is sold out, it will be sold out. They are not going to bring this back after that. So, what are your thoughts?
That definitely is. It definitely looks nice. It looks very nice, and I didn't read over everything, but I missed the part that said it came with a white case. So that's definitely very interesting and unique, considering the fact that all the other ones are just the standard black. I mean, the original limited edition one, that one has slightly different case, but it was still black. Just some of the other stuff, accents changed. So it definitely looks very nice. If I didn't have the limited edition, the original limited edition OLED, I probably would be tempted to get this, but I'm like, I don't need a third Steam Deck, especially one that is essentially the same thing, just with a different shell.
Right.
Now, like, I think it's okay, the fact that it's the same price as the original limited edition one, so I think that's fine. I also really like the fact that this time it's available in every region, whereas with the Steam Deck OLED, or at least with the limited edition one, especially the limited edition one, that one was only available in the US. So the fact that it's available in other regions, especially for people in those regions who are saying, please ship this version over here. We will want to buy it. Like, I'm glad they have this opportunity this time around to do that. Now, with them releasing a second limited edition, what I kind of would like for whatever next Steam Deck Valve makes is to have multiple versions available at launch so people can sort of see what's already there and know whether or not they want to get one version or if they want to get another version. Because I feel like some people who bought the original limited edition would think, man, I would really like to get the white version instead of this one. Now, I mean, granted, I still would have aimed to get the one I like because I like darker colors. But you know, for people who, and also I sort of like the translucent nature of the shell as well.
Right.
But for people who want that clean white, you know, they'll be like, oh man, I would have bought this. I think this looks great. So I would like Valve to do that next time. Just have all limited editions available at launch, just so people know what they're, you know, what's available, and that way they don't have to worry about buying. Oh man, I'll sell this version, so that way I can, you know, have to spend that much on this one. But yeah, not really too much extra, I should say, because I mean, spec wise, it's the same thing. But yeah, definitely good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I love the look of it, but I definitely would not sell the one I have. I mean, I'm actually kind of glad that the white one wasn't available at launch, because my hope is that eventually, I don't know why it hasn't happened yet, but my hope is that eventually JSOX, or however you pronounce the company, will make the transparent shells for the OLED, because right now they only have them for the LCD Steam Deck. And with me having the black shell right now, it's so much easier to be like, oh, I'm totally fine with changing out the shell. If I had the white one, I would have a much harder time wanting to change it out. But like, I've been wanting that atomic purple, the translucent atomic purple, like the Game Boy Color back in the day. Because I've loved that ever since N64 and Game Boy Color. And I wanted to get that for my Steam Deck, and then the OLED ended up happening, and it's like, oh, well, I guess I'm waiting and getting the OLED instead. And this company still has not made shells for the OLED. So it's like, I'm not even going to bother messing with it until they do that. But when they do, I will definitely be getting one, because that is, I just love the way it looks. And I'm a sucker for the translucent too, mostly because of nostalgia, but also just because I love the way it looks. So, a little bit of both. All right, any other thoughts on that?
No, sir.
All right, you want to cover this whole thing about Xbox with the handheld?
Yeah.
Sorry, let me back up. Cover all of the stuff related to this recent interview with Xbox.
Sure. Yeah, and let me pull this up because I was able to copy some of the article before the paywall went up on me. So there was an interview that Bloomberg had with Phil Spencer, talking about different stuff with Microsoft, especially with Xbox and the gaming division. And there were several topics that were brought up. One of them being possible acquisitions for the company, you know, moving forward, so similar with Activision. Also talked about the possibility of, or the handheld of Xbox handheld and development on that. And then additionally, games being on other platforms. So looking through this here, here's what Phil Spencer said. We definitely want to be in the market, and this is regarding, you know, the possibility of other acquisitions going down. And he said, we definitely want to be in the market, and when we can find teams and technology and capability that add to that, we're trying to add to what we're trying to do in gaming at Microsoft. Absolutely, we'll keep our heads up. Still, he said there's something imminent, and very large deals are probably off the table at present, as the company is spending a lot of time absorbing Activision Blizzard employees. But he did say that Microsoft is looking at diversifying their teams and looking more at China, especially because the companies over there developed Age of Empires and has also partnered with Tencent, which would be a fit for that type of demographic there. And then regarding with handhelds, he said that there's that making one is an expectation that we would do something. And then he said that the designers and engineers will focus on making the Xbox app work better on existing portable devices and partnering with hardware makers to make sure their products sync with Xbox games and experiences. The Xbox app right now is good rather than great on some of these gadgets, he said. And then he said, longer term, I love us building devices, and I think our team could do some real innovative work, but we want to be informed by learning and what's happening now. And then I think there's one more thing specifically that he mentioned, something about the teams. Oh yeah. Let's know. Okay, I thought there was something here in the article that said something about like how long they're working on something. I think he said like over a year or two. About like how long they're focusing on working on that, but I'm not seeing anything here. So and then lastly, as far as with trying to get games on possibly other platforms, rather what games would be coming over to them. So when asked about these, he said, I think the ball is moving in the right direction as far as with getting games on other platforms. He said, I think this idea of open platforms where users have more choice, creators have more choice, you see the momentum, right? And then he said that with the Xbox games that have gone over to PlayStation and Switch, he said he's pleased with the results. Microsoft will do more of that, he said, and won't rule out any game in Microsoft's stable. I do not, in quotes, I do not see sort of red lines in our portfolio that say, thou must not. He said it's too early to make any sort of decisions, especially with like the next version of Halo. And then there's one last thing here that I thought was very interesting. Oh yeah, and then, well, this is primarily talking about the growth of mobile games, but I feel like this could possibly apply to other aspects, especially with regards to games going to other platforms. I feel pretty good about where this industry is going. To reach new players, we need to be creative and adaptive of new business models, new devices, new ways of access. We're not going to grow the market with $1,000 consoles. And that is the main gist of everything. So before I get into what I want to say, what are your thoughts on these topics?
Well, let's see here. First of all, regarding the handheld, not surprised. I mean, obviously, we've talked about this a lot previously, and the idea that it's still probably a few years out isn't surprising. I look forward to seeing what they do with it. I probably am not going to be interested in it because currently, I mean, I can play any Xbox game on PC, on Steam Deck. Some of them obviously better than others on Steam Deck. Starfield is just runs poorly across the board, but the fact of the matter is that from that standpoint, it probably wouldn't change a whole lot on my perspective, but I am super curious to see what the handheld's going to look like when that happens. But if they're saying a few years out, then, well, a few years out it is, and we'll just wait to see what happens with that. Obviously, it would end up being with the next generation anyway. And then regarding the acquisitions, it's not terribly surprising that they are looking to acquire more companies. It's basically saying that it's probably not going to be anything anywhere near as large as Activision Blizzard was, which isn't surprising at all. And of course, it's even less concerning, I would imagine, for people who are worried about the consolidation, especially PlayStation fans and fanboys. Simply because of the fact that they've also said that no game or game series is off the table from being ported over. And I think obviously that it's a great thing to have more of their games ported over. We'll get into talking about it a little more in a bit after we're done with this topic, but like Indiana Jones, we already got confirmation that's coming in spring to PS5. And I'll just say, without getting too much into it right now, after watching that preview, I'm like, this game actually looks great. I mean, it looks way better than I thought it did before, and visually, I think it's improved as well. But anyway, I think that's really about it as far as my thoughts on that.
Okay. Yeah. I definitely agree that the handheld aspect, we sort of knew that was coming and sort of expecting it. One thing that I'm curious though is because I'm just with regards to getting the Xbox sort of app running on a mobile device. I mean, obviously, I think that's probably the biggest thing to overcome, just to make sure that it's efficient. That it's not taking up a whole lot of resources, but also the fact that it's just an overall enjoyable experience. I mean, I know that I've seen some videos where people have been doing stuff with the ROG allies, and just they want to sort of have that experience that you would normally get on a Steam Deck, but getting that on an actual other piece of hardware. And they've been putting it on other OSs like Bazite OS to sort of like replicate that Steam Deck feel. And one thing that I'm curious about, because now I haven't tampered too much in this, and I might talk about this some more next week, but I bought a Steam machine recently, and this version came out with the Windows version on it. And so one thing that when I was at least plugging it in, I saw was it said to get the, I guess, sort of console-like experience to plug in a controller. And I'm wondering, what's going on here? Because this is Windows 8, but you're saying a console experience. So I'm very curious as to like what that would be like, or what's really going on there to like navigate everything with a controller instead of just using mouse and keyboard. So I'm wondering if there's something there that has already technically existed. I mean, of course, outside of what they have on Xbox, why aren't they? What is there something there that they could use to make that experience better on an Xbox handheld? I'm just like curious, because I mean I feel like Microsoft should be able to take the Xbox experience and put that on a handheld. But I'm just wondering what has been sort of the problem as to why it hasn't happened sooner. Sure, you could say, it's only something they've thought about considering recently, and research and development takes time. But I feel like with their resources, something like this shouldn't be as big of a problem. And that's something that, Phil Spencer just said is something they're trying to work with implementing, with just translating that from a console to a handheld. So I'm wondering what exactly is the underlying root of the problem there. But of course, we'll know more about that later on. Now, as far as games coming over to other devices, that's, I think the fact that nothing is sort of like off the table is great. The fact that we could possibly see all these other games come over is great. Now, one thing that I would really love to see, and, I feel like Microsoft just forgot all about these games, is if they ported over Rare Replay to all the other consoles. Like, that is probably the one thing on Xbox that I would love to get that will probably never come over, because getting those collections of the older Rare titles, getting the Banjo-Kazooies, getting Jet Force Gemini, getting Perfect Dark and Perfect Dark Zero ported over, if you could get that on, your Switch, if you could get that on PC, that would be amazing. I would love to see that ported over.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably won't for whatever reason, but the fact that, just in general, though, no game is restricted, I think that's great, and that's definitely moving forward. And like I said, the thing about what he said about wasn't really applying to the mobile market, but I think it definitely applies to just the entire gaming market in general. You can't have growth if you're only focused on one specific platform. You have to look at where you can apply your products on a global scale. So, I mean, Microsoft already did that with moving games to PC. Now they're thinking, well, hold on now. What's to stop us from putting these games on other consoles. I mean, we can definitely get some money out of that. And we've also done stuff like with Game Pass and partnering with Amazon, so you can stream it from your Alexa devices or whatever. So looking at that aspect, I think it's definitely right. And I don't know if this was a little jab at Sony, but saying you can't have growth by selling $1,000 consoles, as regarding their PS5 Pro, especially once you get all the add-ons for that. That's nearly $1,000. So, and I mean, so Sony's credit, they are working on that. Porting games to PC, possibly porting some stuff to other consoles as well. I mean, Horizon's on Lego Horizon is on the Switch, so
yeah,
they're working on that as well. So I definitely think that's something that these companies are seeing, barring Nintendo, because Nintendo is not porting anything to anywhere. But it's definitely, I definitely agree with him on that you definitely need to have growth. Now, lastly, as far as acquisitions go, I don't think they necessarily need to have any more acquisitions. I think they're good for right now. Also, I doubt they'll really do anything either, or at least right now, because they barely skirted by the FTC with Activision. So if they go out again, the FTC is going to be on top of them.
Yeah.
Like 5 minutes just after hinting that there's an acquisition, they're going to be on them. So I definitely don't see them having any sort of acquisition anytime soon. But yeah, that's all I've got.
Good stuff. Well, speaking of Xbox games going to other platforms, as of course we already mentioned, we just had a deep dive on Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, or as my friend Chris McCracken calls it, the Freaky Circle. Indiana Jones and the Freaky Circle. And I was really... Well, actually, I probably shouldn't talk about my thoughts too much, but more specifically, the news related to this is that Machine Games has confirmed that this game is going to run at 60 frames per second on both the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S, which demonstrates, like we've been saying, that getting a game at 60 frames per second has nothing to do with the power of the console. It has to do with the willingness of the developer to do the work. So, what are your thoughts?
It's definitely I mean, kind of a surprise. Well, not a surprise. Let me retract that. Not a surprise that's running at 60 FPS on the Series X, because I think we all should expect that this game would run at 60 FPS on the Series X. I don't think there's anything. I don't think we should be doubting that that's possible. The fact that's running at 60 frames per second on the Series S, I think is definitely, sadly, I will say an achievement, just because of the fact that I really feel like more games could be running at 60 FPS, but developers aren't putting in enough time or effort into doing it. So the fact that I have to say this, that I have to applaud them for doing this, is kind of sad, but at the same time, it definitely needs to be done, since they're one of the few that are making this effort. So it's great that's running at 60 FPS on the Series S. So that way, people who have an S will still, I mean, graphically it won't be the same, but as far as performance goes, it will be the same performance running on Series S as an X. So that is phenomenal. I love it. Now, as far as the gameplay, the expanded gameplay trailer goes, I definitely agree that the game is hooking me a bit more, especially with some of the sort of puzzle elements and some of the, I guess sort of stealth sections, just because it really reminds me of parts of the movies where Indy was looking around, he was disguising himself, trying to get into a hidden area and stuff. So like, I thought, wow, it's like the movie. I like this. This is great. And also, man, I need to figure out who's writing the score, because I don't think I really listened too much of it in other trailers, but this time I was listening to the music more, and I thought, this definitely sounds like it came from an Indiana Jones movie. It sounds like something that John Williams wrote. So I'm just thinking to myself, yeah, they're doing a good job with trying to replicate his style of music here. So I definitely like that. Now, one thing and it does definitely look good. And I like some of the changes that they've made, and especially with regards to exploration. The one thing I'm not entirely sold on, though, is the combat. I don't know. It just doesn't really seem right to me. And I mean, to be fair, at least with the Indiana Jones games that I've played before, the combat wasn't necessarily, it wasn't the greatest. So in that aspect, you know, I might be a little bit too judgmental here, but at the same time, I feel like years later, after getting an Indiana Jones game that wasn't, I guess you could say, Lego Indiana Jones, I feel like maybe I kind of expected more, and it still feels a little underwhelming to me, but I might have to just look at some more footage, and then make a decision on that. But I feel like with everything else, though, I am more intrigued than I have been before in the game, which is definitely getting me from being, I don't care one way or another if I'll get it or not, to, okay, I might actually get this game at this point. So definitely is starting to hook me in that regards. But yeah, definitely good stuff, and I'm very glad that the game is 60 FPS on every console. And I mean, it's most likely gonna be 60 FPS on PS5 too, when that comes out as well. So 60 FPS across the board, love to see it.
Indeed. Yeah, of course the 60 FPS is for me the biggest thing. That's the best part of this all, just because, you know, so few developers actually put forth the effort to actually get 60 FPS, but I'm really glad to see that Machine Games is putting that effort in. And from what I recall of their other stuff I've played, which might actually only be Wolfenstein: The New Order, but I remember that one was really well optimized, and I have a feeling that, I mean, it's just, you know, they're good at making games. Everything I've seen of the game from the deep dive, I was like, yeah, the game looks a lot better than I thought it did before. Before I wasn't quite sure about it. I'm kind of with you on the combat. I'm just not really sure. I need to experience it firsthand to be able to say whether or not I would actually enjoy it. But I do think visually it's improved since the last time they showed it off. Particularly the character models look a lot better. I felt like it was much more detailed and realistic, and less feeling like just kind of in between on the visuals. So I was impressed with that. But yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it probably would not be a day one purchase for me, because it's just kind of low on my priority list, unless I found out that it like ran amazing on Steam Deck. And if it did, then I would probably buy it right away. But that would more just be to show support for a developer actually making the effort to make a game like this run well on the Steam Deck. But I don't expect that's going to happen. I imagine it's probably going to be, it'll run better than Starfield, because Starfield is on the Creation Engine. The Creation Engine is terrible. But I don't think it's going to run well at all. It's not going to be, unfortunately, an actual verified Steam Deck game. And I would even take 30 frames per second if I had to on the Steam Deck. Even though more likely than not, I would just stream it from my PC most of the time. But regardless, overall, I think it's good. It looks great. I'm glad that it's not going to be limited to just one platform. I mean, it already wasn't in that it was coming to PC, but knowing that it will be coming to PS5 as well, that means that more people have an opportunity to play it, and that's all great. So, all right, any other thoughts on that?
No, sir.
All right, well, speaking of games coming to other platforms, though, on the flip side of Microsoft games coming to Xbox and other platforms, Death Stranding, which has long been a PlayStation exclusive, later ported to PC as well, really not long after, and it has been on PC for several years as well. But Death Stranding has now been released officially on Xbox Series X and S. And I was mistaken. I thought that it was already there because I saw that it was on PC Game Pass a while ago, but it turns out it was just on PC Game Pass and not on Xbox Game Pass. So, either way, I mean, I'll play some, of my gameplay from the PC version. I've had lots of thoughts about this game in general from previous episodes of the podcast, but why don't you go with your thoughts before I get into mine?
Yeah, this definitely was a surprise to me. I mean, granted, I know Kojima is supposed to be working on a game with Microsoft that is still being developed, but I wasn't, even despite that, I wasn't expecting Death Stranding to just be ported over. So the fact that this is coming over, I think, is great. It also opens the door for Death Stranding 2. Well, I mean, I feel like the sequel is going to be coming over to Xbox as well, but it's just a matter now of when rather than if.
Mm-hmm.
I also think it's great that Kojima was able to work out a deal with Sony to buy publishing rights, and that's definitely something that I think in an interview saying that because of his relationship with Sony, he was able to work that out. So I think it's great that also that Sony was willing to not have the game be exclusive, which I think would have been horrible and stupid. But I'm glad they really said like, all right, yeah, that's fine, go ahead, you can have distribution rights. Probably said just make sure Death Stranding 2 is exclusive for maybe 3 years or something like that. I mean, maybe it might not be that long, but exclusive enough that they're happy. So I feel like definitely the second one's coming out on Xbox as well. Just don't know when. And I mean, maybe Death Stranding 2 might, well, maybe it'll be available day and date on PC. Don't know, but I feel like that's something that's definitely in the cards for a port to come over to PC at least. But definitely good stuff. The more people that can play this game, as with any game, is great and better than fewer people being able to play it. So I'm pleased with this.
Yeah, so of course, as I've gushed about this game a bunch on the podcast, I love Death Stranding. I thought it was a brilliant game, and anyone who calls it a walking simulator either didn't play very much of the game or didn't play it at all, because it is so much, it's not a walking simulator. I mean, yes, you do a lot of walking, but when you think of a walking simulator, it's typically all you do is walk. There's no involvement to it, no control to it. It's just like, you're just walking on environments. You don't do anything. This game brings if every walking simulator was like this, then walking simulators would be a much more popular genre, or well, at least popular outside of casual circles. Because in this, you have to really consider the footing that you're dealing with, the weight that you're carrying, how everything is balanced. And of course, there is combat in the game. There are very memorable boss fights that fit with some of the best of Kojima's boss fights from the Metal Gear Solid series. Anyway, there's a ton of stuff I could say about this game, but I'm just going to keep it simple and say this is a fantastic game. I'm super glad that Xbox players are going to have the opportunity to play it, or rather that they can play it now because it's already out. It's too bad it took as long as it did, but I'm just glad that it's coming, or that it's on there. Along with that, though, the fact that Kojima now has publishing rights for Death Stranding as an IP is a big deal, and mostly because of the fact that this means theoretically he could release Death Stranding 2 on other platforms either on the same date or very close to. And obviously my hope is that this will mean Death Stranding 2 will launch on PC at the same time that it launches on PS5. Although, I mean, I would be okay with waiting 6 months like it was between the original launch of Death Stranding and the PC version. But this is a game that I would, if it comes out day one on PC, I'm buying it without question. I'm buying the collector's edition. I love the first game. Kojima has not failed me yet on these games, and especially from a gameplay standpoint. Even if like Metal Gear Solid 5 had some issues story-wise, but from a gameplay standpoint, it was just amazing. And Death Stranding was amazing as well, just in a different way. So, either way, I'm super happy about this, that it's on Xbox now. I'm super happy that Kojima has publishing rights, and I'm hoping that this means we'll see either at the very least a shorter window, if not an actual day and date release, at least on PC. I would love to see it happen on Xbox as well, but yeah, it's great stuff. And Sony is still involved in the publishing, so for any PlayStation fans who are saying that, oh, Sony doesn't have any involvement in it, well, Sony Interactive Entertainment still shows up in the opening title card, so, or the opening before the title card. But yeah, that is all I have on that front.
Nice.
All right, well, PlayStation has their 30th anniversary coming up in December. And, I mean, of course, they've already had, like the special 30th anniversary version of the PS5, along with additional controllers and stuff, that it has the color scheme of the original PS1. Looks fantastic. If it wasn't for the fact that I have no desire to get a PS5, I absolutely would have wanted to get one because I love that aesthetic. I have lots of fond memories of the original PlayStation. But there was a... Let me just bring up the article here from Game Rant. So I'll just read specifically what they say. So, December 3rd could be a big day for PlayStation fans, as the community has begun speculating that Sony will be hosting a special showcase event for the console's 30th anniversary. Now, of course, Sony hasn't actually announced anything officially, and a lot of times when you have PlayStation fans coming up with this stuff, it's just like with Nintendo fans, people getting themselves hyped up for absolutely nothing. But this one actually has a good reason to believe that this could actually happen. So, Sony just put out a Play Has No Limits advertisement that includes a little Easter egg in it. And that Easter egg, let me find this here. At around the 46-second mark of the advertisement, the numbers 03, 12, 20, 24 can be seen on a train station schedule board, which many now believe is a clear tease for the next major PlayStation event. Now, for those who are not aware, I would imagine most people are in Europe. They do the date before the month. So 3/12 would be December 3rd. And then 2024, the time, of course, the year 2024. So, now it is, of course, certainly possible that this is just an Easter egg that's simply saying that December 3rd, 2024 is the 30th anniversary, which it is. But it could also be that this is teasing an event that's going to be shown for the 30th anniversary. So what are your thoughts?
I might have to agree with the fans on this one. I feel like something this large, just to have something teased in this way for something this big, it just doesn't make sense. So I would have to agree that something is being shown. What it could be, I don't know. It would be great if they said, hey, we're going to revive some older IPs, just to sort of help help I guess bolster that nostalgia that people have, considering the fact this is the 30th anniversary. So maybe bringing over some older games like Jack and Daxter, maybe, when was the last time we had a game like like those? Maybe something from the original PS1 generation. I don't know. Like maybe Ape Escape, Legend of Dragoon, like remake or something like that. Something from that generation that they could remake for a new generation. Like this is the one time I would say remake something, something from the original console. Like that's the perfect thing to remake. But no, let's remake games that came out on the last console we had. But I do feel like something is going to be shown. Hopefully it's not something that we don't already know, something that just came out. I feel remastering something which doesn't remaster. Hopefully it's something that is a little older. I mean, if they want to, announce, hey, we've got Gravity Rush coming, that would be great if they want to do that. I mean, it's not, a PS1 game, but hey, I'll take that too, especially if you port it over to PC. But I don't know. I don't know what I feel like I should expect. I feel like my expectations should be really tempered, but at the same time, I feel like this is a great time to get all of those people who were there for the original PS1 and try to recreate the games that were made their childhoods awesome. The games that they really enjoyed. This is the perfect time to do that. But I feel like that's really wishful thinking, but I could be wrong, and I would really love to be wrong in this case, that they're really gonna really give a nice good surprise. But who knows, they might just say, hey, we've got more PS Slims available as part of the 30th anniversary. Go buy one. They're in stock now. For you, $350. But yeah. Now, one thing I will actually like to see is, or at least this is that does have to relate to that, but just because you mentioned it and I'm thinking about it now, see if they have the DualSense controller sold separately, because I would really be interested in getting, just that original PS1 variant of the controller, because that does look good. But
I'm pretty sure it's already sold out. You can only buy it directly through PlayStation's thing, through PlayStation Direct, and I'm pretty sure it sold out immediately after they brought it up.
Ugh. Okay then, never mind then. Want to restock that for the 30th anniversary, Sony? I'll buy one then. But yeah, that's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I definitely think that this is very possible that they're going to have something. Of course, it could very well just be literally this is just an Easter egg referring to the date of the 30th anniversary, and there won't be anything whatsoever. Instead of remastering PS1 games, remaking PS1 games, they could just do Last of Us Part 2 remake. And launching day and date on PC. And it will, hopefully, just as a side note, hopefully whenever they actually do bring The Last of Us Part 2 over to PC, as much as I don't want it to be on PC, they'll actually use a good port studio that knows what they're doing, instead of using one that just did a horrendous job. Okay, so I'm going to go off on just a quick side thing, because we're getting through faster than usual. So, of course, the PS5 Pro just came out. And there's one article, I believe it's from The Verge, where they're talking about pros and cons of the PS5 Pro. And, of course, they bring up the typical argument of, I can bring up this game on my PS5 and it just works immediately. I don't have any problems with it. And the game that they use to compare is The Last of Us Part 1, which of course is notoriously the worst port that PlayStation has put out for PC. It's like, yes, you're comparing. I mean, it's like, first of all, the person was saying that they're using a $300 graphics card. It's like, okay, so what's that, like a 1080 or something? An old graphics card, which was good for its time, but isn't as good now. And then furthermore, you're talking about a really bad PC port. Why didn't you compare one of the good ports, like Spider-Man Remastered, or God of War, or Ratchet and Clank, or one of the many other amazing ports that are on PC? And it's obviously because then they would have to be honest, theoretically, and point out that, oh, it looks and runs better on PC. But I digress. Okay.
Well, don't forget one last thing. Is just a little note to tack on is that The Verge is also the company that gave us that wonderful how to build a PC video.
Oh yeah.
So.
Oh man,
forgot
about
better?
that. I totally forgot about that. I'm gonna have to share that in the Discord. Just be like, yeah, this is the same Verge.
Difference where your live strong strap as you build it.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Man, that was embarrassing. That was absolutely embarrassing how bad that was.
Oh.
If you put the power supply directly in the frame, directly in the case, it could short circuit. Then I seem to remember, like, was using like a ton of thermal paste on their CPU. It was like a tablespoon of thermal paste, and it's just like, dude, what? Oh man.
Oh man.
I totally forgot about that. That's funny. Yeah, so let's see here. Okay, that's right. Going back on topic, so that potential PlayStation to showcase for the 30th anniversary, I hope they do something, and I hope they did something good. I've been so underwhelmed by what PlayStation has been doing lately, to where I just have a feeling it's going to be on the same level as like how Nintendo disappoints us time and again. It's just like, you expect too much out of them and then they give you garbage. Like, I love the design of the PS5 Pro with the 30th anniversary design, going back to the classic colors and all that. Like, that's fantastic. I mean, it wasn't unexpected, but it's still fantastic. I love it. I love it. I love it. But I'm keeping my expectations low, and hopefully they will prove me wrong on that front. But either way, we'll just have to wait and see. December 3rd is a few weeks away, and hopefully there will actually be something good and something significant. I just don't expect anything. All right. Any more thoughts on that before we move on before we finish up the news for the night?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, we got through this way faster than usual. It's amazing how that happened. Recommendations and dissuasions.
All right. So my recommendation, actually, what's my recommendation again? Oh yeah. So my recommendation is Sega, I think a week ago or something like that, announced that they are delisting their Mega Drive / Genesis collections, also their Dreamcast collection, from every storefront. So that's PC, Xbox, PlayStation, Switch. It's being pulled from every store, I believe, the beginning of December. So my recommendation is to buy it now before it's gone, because those games are gone. Now, sure, you could say they're just older, 16-bit era, Dreamcast era games, but you could still get a full bundle of games for, and I mean, like the Genesis Mega Drive bundle has, I think, like 50-ish games in there, so you can get all those games for, I don't remember what the price is. I bought it sometime recently, but get all those games, and I still have to go back and get the Dreamcast bundle. But so definitely buy those games now before they're gone, because I don't know what Sega's doing, but it's good to have those older games.
Good recommendation. Yeah, I was just keeping an eye out for a sale before I buy any of those, because I don't really want to spend full price on any of them. I mean, like, I think the only one of those games that I'm legitimately like, I would want to play this that I don't already have is Crazy Taxi. But I mean, and it's only $8, but if I can get it cheaper, I'm gonna get it cheaper. I mean, there's no reason to spend more on something that I may not even play anytime soon. So, but I probably won't. My recommendation is, assuming that you have a PC that is stronger than your Steam Deck, take advantage of the game streaming feature, because while it's had some issues in the past, it seems to be working really well now, and I think that has to do with recent updates they've done. But yeah, I've been really happy with how well the streaming has worked. Streaming Ghostwire Tokyo, it's just been great, and big improvement over playing it natively on the Steam Deck for a game like that. I'm also going to recommend Death Stranding, especially the director's cut, but just the game period. If you have the ability to play it, whether it's PlayStation, PC, or Xbox now, you should play it. I'm really hoping that with the next generation that it'll get ported to Switch, because I think that would be a really interesting comparison. But also because even if I never fully play it on Switch, I will buy it there, because I love the game and I want to support Kojima, and I love the game. So so that's pretty much all I got with that. Yeah, that's what I got for recommendations. What are your dissuasions?
Oh man, I've had a hard time trying to think of a good dissuasion, but I guess my dissuasion is, I guess I'm gonna sort of steal this from what we were talking about earlier. Do not use the Verge PC build as a guide to build a PC. That is definitely something that many PC builders who have reacted to the video have said do not use. And granted, I think at this point The Verge removed that video anyway, but you could probably find an upload somewhere, or at least a reaction. But whatever they did in the video, just don't do. I definitely would recommend against it. Look for someone else more reputable, more knowledgeable on building PCs than The Verge. So that's my dissuasion there.
Indeed. Agreed wholeheartedly. All right. Well, my dissuasion is going to be, don't nail things to your baseboards. When I was nailing my Ethernet cables with the clips to my wall on this past weekend, I had done quite a bit of it nailing the clips to the baseboards, and it's just so much more difficult to get nails in there, especially because like there are these little tiny nails on these little tiny clips, and I have big fingers, big chunky fingers, big sausage fingers. And so like my son just happened to have this small hammer that he got with like a wood building kit. So I was able to use that, and that helped a lot, but it's still just like, it's already difficult nailing that little tiny nail, even with the small hammer. But it's even worse when you're doing it on a baseboard where it's thick wood and is a lot harder to nail into than it is to just nail into the drywall. Drywall is much, much easier to nail into. And for something like that, it's worked great. So I did like maybe about a third of it in the baseboard, and then the rest of it I just did in the drywall, and it was much faster and much easier. Although being on my knees and on my butt on a hardwood floor after a while definitely left me sore. I'm still kind of recovering from that. I think even if I wasn't getting old, I would probably have that same problem though, because it's difficult. But of course, then it occurred to me after I had done that one, I could have just grabbed my office chair and sat in that the whole time, and that would have made it way easier. And that's what I did when I started doing the other two cables. But then, of course, I ran out of clips, so I couldn't finish. But yeah. And then the other thing I want to dissuade you from doing is do not forget to check your cables if you happen to disconnect something on your computer. As much as we are champions of the PC on this podcast, there are times where if you make a stupid mistake, you win stupid prizes, and it is very easy to end up wasting a bunch of time trying to fix something, and it turns out it was as simple as something being plugged into the wrong spot. And in other cases, there's obviously other potential issues depending on software you have installed, and I'm not going to get into all that other than the fact that I had a very annoying audio issue that it took me a while to figure out. And I wasted way too much time on that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's very good advice there. And something that's not directly, but not the same thing, but I definitely have had that sort of thing happen to me before in the past, where something is easy, but I just don't think about those things sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, it's like, this wasn't even a gaming related issue at all. It was something completely separate. It was, well, primarily it was related to video editing, because I was trying to use Premiere, and Premiere kept giving me this error with the audio issues. I mean, with the audio. And like, so I wasn't able to hear the audio in the video that I was trying to edit. And then even once I swapped some things around so that I could hear the audio, then I couldn't record my voiceover because it wasn't detecting my microphone, because that different audio setting didn't work with the microphone. And ultimately, I just had to get rid of Voicemeeter because that was causing problems, which I've literally been using that for like 5-6 years, and I've never had any problems with it. And just suddenly it decided, I'm just going to screw you up. And it wasn't until I finally stopped using that, I mean, you deactivated it and everything, that all my audio started working properly. And since then, I haven't had any issues other than earlier when it was just a matter of it being set up to play the audio through Voicemeeter, which was making it so that I couldn't hear the Discord call, so that we were having issues getting started. But anyway. Yeah, no issues with the gaming side of things. Like, I've had no issues in a long time. But it's just, it was very annoying, very frustrating. So I can definitely give the console fans credit from that standpoint, because if you do have an issue, it can be really frustrating. It's just that for me, when it comes to video games, that's not typically where I have any issues. It's usually when I'm working with other pieces of software that are completely unrelated to video games. So, anyway, enough of that. All right. Let's see here. Well, where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon. That's IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@ I am Xeracon. No videos this past week. Like I said, I was working on a possible thing, but I wasn't happy with that. So I'm gonna be working on some other stuff. One thing, trying to decide if I want to do this or not. I might do it later on, sometime down the road. Is on the video regarding the HoriPad Steam controller. Someone asked about doing comparisons with different games and how they work, and like showing their settings and whatnot to see how it performs. I said I'd think about it. I might try doing something like that, but I don't know if that's something I really want to do move as a series. But I'll see how that goes. It's something I'm considering, but I'll see.
Cool. Well, you can find me on my YouTube gaming channel at TheFrozenGamer87. The most recent thing I put out, apart from the clips from the show, which I do put out the different segments of our discussion topics from the podcast on that channel. I put out the comparison for Persona 5 Royal, and that's doing really well. I mean, it's nowhere near my top performing in terms of the comparisons, but it's still doing significantly better than the Persona 4 Golden one, which last I checked had only like 60 views compared to the literally thousands of views that I get on most of those comparisons. So it is what it is, but the Persona 5 Royal comparison is a good one. I'm working on the one for Red Dead Redemption between the Steam Deck OLED and the Switch OLED, but I don't know for sure if I'll have enough time to get all the recording done in time to do the editing this weekend. My hope is, if nothing else, I can get the recording done this weekend and then work on the editing throughout next week and then just get it out the following week. But either way, I look forward to that. I also have my YouTube cooking channel, Not Authentic But Delicious. That's youtube.com/@NABD Cooking. I just put out my recipe for buffalo chicken mac and cheese, which is so good. It is definitely a recipe, though, where I have learned that I absolutely hate recording the voiceover for the steps after the fact, because it's so much harder to get the timing right on everything and explain things correctly. So I'm not going to be recording it after the fact anymore. I'm going to be recording as I am recording the video. But with that, I have 2 more recipes recorded right now. They just have to be put together with everything, all the audio recorded. It's just a matter of getting the videos put together, one of which is a recipe that I did myself, and then the other one is one that my wife did. I don't know which one of those is going up next week yet. I haven't quite decided. I'll probably, if I have time, I'll probably just try to get both of them edited and then at least uploaded and then just figure out the order. But one of those recipes is a jalapeno popper pizza, which is really good. And then the other is a long-standing recipe we originally got from some friends that we have been using for probably at least 10, somewhere between 10 and 15 years. I mean, I don't think it's been 15 years because it was sometime after we got married, and we've been married a little over 15 years. So anyway, but it's beef broccoli pie. It's like a pie, a savory pie that has ground beef, cream cheese, broccoli, and some other stuff, a homemade crust that's like buttery and flaky and all so good. But anyway, yeah, I don't know which of those recipes is going up next week, so we'll work that out one way or the other. There should be something up next week. And then, of course, we have the YouTube channel for the podcast at the Orange Box Podcast. There we have the video version of our podcast go up every Friday, normally at 7 a.m., as long as I don't have issues with uploading. And if you are listening to the audio-only version, which normally goes up at 12 a.m. Central Time every Friday on all major podcast platforms. The video version, the main difference between that and the audio-only version is simply that you get to see our beautiful faces. You also get to see clips from games we've been playing, as well as trailers that we are discussing and that sort of thing. But something I did actually find out, I don't know how this happened. Apparently, not this last episode, but the week before that episode, even though I got it uploaded, it didn't actually get published. And so it ended up going up a week late. So it is what it is. I don't think it makes a huge difference, but the episodes are all there, and that shouldn't happen again. That's just, I don't know what happened there. But either way, there is that. Of course, if you want to write to us, whether you have questions, comments, want to tell us to Persona 3 ourselves, or anything else, feel free to reach out to us either by commenting on the video version of the podcast or by reaching out to us through our email, theorangeboxpodcast@gmail.com. You can also tweet us or write us on Twitter/X @theorangeboxpod. We'll be sure to do our best to get back to you. So far, I don't think we've gotten any comments, but whether we get comments or not, we're going to keep doing this every week because this is how we catch up from week to week. And in most cases, we're going to be talking for 2.5 hours because that's just what we do. And it's a good time. So I think that's everything I got. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
All right, well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zeracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, eat some chicken wings. Orange Box Podcast, out.